Welcome to the Page by Page Book Club. I'm your host, Paige in Print, and I bring you weekly book club meetings wherever you get your podcasts. Today's a fun one, y'all. Oh my gosh, we are putting Memory Lane as our destination in the GPS, and we are throwing it back to the summer of 2023, and we are discussing the very first romance books I ever read. I am so excited about this episode, y'all. As many of you know, I started reading on my honeymoon in Mexico of July of 2023. My goal on that trip was actually to stay off of my phone. And so I brought 3 physical books with me to the pool, to the beach, to Mexico. And the rest is history. I've officially read 400 romance books since that fateful day, which is so wild to me that since July of 23, we're here less than 2 years later. No, less than 3 years later. Whoa. Less than 3 years later. And we're 400 books in. I mean, that is just absolutely incredible and so much fun, and I'm so glad that I just happened to want to be off of my phone on that trip, and that is what brought us here together today. So, as per my last email, the goal of today is I have my Goodreads pulled up from the very beginning. I have sorted it by date read and then reversed it, so we are back with the very, very first books I read. One very interesting thing I found about myself that I think is actually quite uncommon is that I think many people, when they're looking back at the beginning of their reading journey and the beginning of their Goodreads, they find that they were a little more generous with their ratings than they would be today. I am not that person. I actually have found that I was far more harsh of a critic back in the very beginning than I am today, which is really, really interesting. So I've actually kind of done away with ratings, which if you follow me on Goodreads, that probably drives you nuts. I have a book rating rubric, and it's like a 10-question quiz that I fill out on a spreadsheet that gives me my ultimate rating for a book. And sometimes I'm just moving so quickly that I don't fill out that rating rubric, and then I get to be like 20 books behind, and then I want to cry. So, sorry, I have not been doing a good job spending the time to actually rate books as of late. So, with that being said though, I was way harsher in the beginning. I don't know who, I was giving Simon Cowell a little bit with early ratings. No 3 stars, but I think a lot of these 4 stars would have been 5 stars today, so I think we just jump straight into it. I'm not going to do a specific number, I don't think, of books. I'm just going to go with the vibe, and when time's up, time's up. But just for your context, I read, I believe, either 62 or 68 books between July of 23 and December of 23. So I had a really strong first year, and I had told myself in December, I was like, okay, I'm really liking this. I don't think that this is a phase. And I was really interested in starting a Bookstagram. But for some reason, and if you're listening, don't take this as advice. I don't know why this was what I wanted to do. But I had told myself, I was like, okay, when you have reached 100 books read, then you can start a Bookstagram. That was going to be my personal rule, is that I needed to read 100 books and then I could start an account. And I think that was just because I was like, okay, after I have read 100 books, there'll be plenty to recommend. I don't know why. So that's why I started my account in March of the following year, 24. But that's the lore for you. Okay, let's dive straight in. As the canon doth state, my first read of the romance genre as an adult, diving in, was King of Wrath. Before that, my only romance knowledge came from The Fault in Our Stars, if you could even call it that. And Looking for Alaska and those kind of reads that I read in high school. So King of Wrath was the first read. That was her. And oh how we loved her. What a strong start. I have the physical book sitting right there, the very first one I brought with me. And I ate that book up, y'all. I still think of it fondly. In fact, I would love to do a reread of King of Wrath. I just think that it is such a classic Morley Gray billionaire Marriage of Convenience. I was very intrigued by Marriage of Convenience in the beginning. I'm not sure why. I did find these books on BookTok. Fun fact, by the way. Many of you know my best friend Tori Ann, and if you don't know her, you should. But when I was just a BookTok follower, she was one of the very first BookTokers I followed. Me being best friends with Tori Ann is my Wattpad truth of becoming best friends with the influencer that you followed. She knows this. It really, really cracks us up. So I got a lot of my early recommendations from Tori Ann. So follow her at Tori Ann Reads. She was my original TBR curator without even knowing it. I just think that that's the funniest lore ever. Like, I love this. So I'm fairly certain I found this book through her. It is Morley Gray Marriage of Convenience for my last email. I was very into Marriage of Convenience that was the road we were trying to head down. So I don't know if I looked up Marriage of Convenience romance or if the algorithm just knew that that's what I liked. So needless to say, I really enjoyed King of Wrath, and I went straight into my ultimate comfort read. I cannot believe this was my second read ever, because it is to this day one of my all-time favorites. Upon further review and multiple rereads, and y'all know it's In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. In a Jam by Kate Canterbury is the reason that I'm here before you today. I am not kidding. This Marriage of Convenience, high school friends, single guardian romance is complete and utter slow burn perfection. It was everything that I love in a romance book, and it stands the test of time in a way that's not even funny. I could not love a book more. When we talk about what defines me as a reader, it is In a Jam. If you have not read this book, go right now. Like, run, don't walk, run. It is, if I had to pick one book, it's always going to be this book for both nostalgic purposes, and it's everything to me. It is just small town, Marriage of Convenience, single guardian perfection. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? The audiobook is amazing. It is my ultimate comfort read. It will always come back to In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. Always. Always. So please know this. Please know this. I still love that book. Oddly enough, many are saying, Paige, you said you brought 3 books with you on your honeymoon. What was the third? First of all, in what world did I think I was going to read 3 books in a week at that time after not having read a book, honestly, in a very long time? Probably since, I don't know. It had been a really long time. I don't know what I was thinking. But the third book I read, super oddly enough, was Powerless by Elsie Silver. And it's the purple frame indie cover, actually, which is, even weirder. It was another BookTok find for me. I cannot remember what scene led me to ultimately order this book, but I do remember, I could probably go back and see the post that I saved about it, but yeah, Powerless by Elsie Silver. That is what I snagged and what I read at that time. Or I didn't read it on the honeymoon. I retract, sorry. But I did bring it. We will get to it, and I did ultimately end up reading it. But I did not read it on the honeymoon. So, those 2 books are what I read on the honeymoon. I get home, okay? I get home and I immediately, and I'm talking immediately, order. And y'all are going to be like, you're kidding. And I'm saying I'm not kidding. My third book I ever read was The Right Move by Liz Tomforty. Yeah, dude. It's hard to go up from there. I'm going to be honest. Like, The Right Move? Oh, just I remember reading this book. It was on the weekend. I was working my corporate job at the time, obviously. I was escaping to and with Ryan and Indy. And if you read The Right Move, it's beloved for a reason. It is that good. It is that girl. And again, it just happened to be a BookTok find for me. I didn't know it was a series. I didn't know there was a book before it. I just dove straight into it. And I will never, ever forget. My husband was doing something in our room. He might have been like cleaning or watching TV or something. So I had gone and I was laying in our guest room. I don't know why, but I just remember it so clearly. And I just was sobbing, crying through the third act of this book for two reasons. One, I was deeply moved. Your girl was deeply moved. I loved it. I was living the dream. It's such an amazing book, and I had known that from the beginning. And then also, like, I just vividly remember finishing the book, closing it. I'm laying in the guest room. It's, like, on the other side of this wall. And it was really interesting. In the very beginning of my reading journey, I just desperately didn't want to leave these characters and didn't want the books to end. And this was like a super common theme through the beginning of my reading journey, was like I had grown so attached to these characters. I remember it with finishing King of Wrath and then going into In a Jam and then In a Jam into The Right Move. Like, I was really hesitant to even pick up another book because I was like, no one's ever going to compare to this couple. No one's ever going to make me feel the way this couple did. It was so interesting, like, the impact that these early books had on me as a reader. It was everything. And so I just remember finishing The Right Move and sobbing because literally knowing in that moment I'm never going to be able to read this for the first time again, and I'm never going to be able to feel like it was so meta. Like, it really was. But that was the third book I ever read. It's so crazy to think about. The Right Move by Liz Tomforty. Like, wow. That was my third one. And I know I didn't start reading in 2020 during like the Colleen Hoover Renaissance or even like Fourth Wing. So it is interesting that these first three books weren't, or even Elsie Silver. So like these first three books were, BookTok finds and were not like the books, like a lot of, I think, or even Akatar. That's the other one. Like, I feel like those are four like really, really common suspects when we're talking about getting back into reading as an adult, specifically in the romance genre. But yeah, like that wasn't me. That wasn't my truth. So yeah, those were my first three. Then the saga continues. I remember this differently, but apparently it's not true. I thought my next book was Marriage for One by Ella Maisie. It was not. It was actually Twisted Games by Anna Wong. So we had two of these first four being the lovely Miss Anna. I, again, was just a connoisseur of BookTok at the time. I was a BookTok follower, a BookTok lover, and all of my recs were coming from #BookTok. And it's so crazy how full circle this has come, and to have a community of my own now in the space and get to recommend books in a similar way to people, like, it's really, really fun. But yes, so Twisted Games, when we're talking about my childhood, and wow, that's like a wild turn. I'm sure you're like, whiplash, I'm going somewhere. Okay, when we talk about my dream job as a child, I wanted to be a princess. Who doesn't? But like, literally wanted to be a princess. And so I think that something called to me with Bridget from Twisted Games. And so I read the ever-beloved bodyguard princess / queen, college, billionaire, etc. romance from Anna. Second book in the Twisted series. I have now quickly become a series reader, and I am very much so bought into reading series in order and what have you. However, at the time, it meant nothing to me. And I really did enjoy the standalone nature of interconnected standalones, or back in my early days. As you can see, I read back-to-back book twos with no care in the world for the book ones. I did eventually go back, but Twisted Games is book 2. Can it be read as a standalone? Well, yes, because I just did, as you can see. But yeah, so this is such an interesting first 4 lineup. Okay, we digress and we continue. The next read was Marriage for One by Ella Maisie, and this is still one of my favorites. Like, one of my favorite classic marriage of conveniences. And again, per my last email, in the beginning, I was really into Marriage of Convenience. And I still am. I still love Marriage of Convenience, but not the way I was, like, so intrigued by it at this time. I really, really don't know what it was about this, but loved it. That one is like he's a lawyer, I believe, and they enter into a marriage of convenience, and he knows more than she does, but he also helps her open up a coffee shop. It's like classic romance, rom-com type beats. And I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I remember it fondly to this day. Man, oh, that reminds me of a book we're about to get to. So, please hold. But, yeah, that one has a special place in my heart too. That's actually one of the early ones that I don't have a physical copy for. And I need to rectify that because I really love that book. And I often find myself when I'm creating content, like looking to my shelves for the books I do have so I can hold them up in my videos and stuff. And I'm missing some of these old classics that I loved because I haven't gotten the physicals for myself yet. So okay, I need to rectify this. That's a to-do list item for after we're done recording here. Okay. Next. Okay, here is where the lore actually kind of shifted. I can't remember if it was Twisted Games, Marriage for One, or this next book, but when all of this was happening, I knew, at this time, this space in our house, which I'm sitting in my library, was an office and a workout space, and I did not have room. I did not have bookshelves. I did not have room for books. So in the beginning, I had purchased those like 4 or 5 books, let's say. And I was like, oh, we're quickly running out of space and I only have 5 books. And I was freshly out of college, newly married. And I was like, and I was reading so fast already. I was like, okay, girl needs a Kindle. Girl needs a Kindle. So I put a Kindle on my Amazon wishlist for my birthday. But my birthday was not till December. And my mom ended up getting me the Kindle. She saw it on my wish list. This is not sponsored, but I use an app called Giftster, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to our family because you can make a list and everyone in your family or whoever you add can see the same list. Like my husband's family can see the list, my family can see the list, I can see the list for other people, and they can see what each other are purchasing for other people, but I can't see who's buying me stuff. Anyway. Love that. So that was on my Giftster. My mom went ahead and snagged it because I think at the time it was like Amazon Prime Day or something. But what she didn't realize was upon purchase, your 3-month trial of Kindle Unlimited like started immediately, and she didn't realize that. And so she ended up giving me my Christmas or my birthday gift, which was my Kindle, in August. You're following? So I now have a Kindle. And now we're picking up steam. Now we're moving. And I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. And she entered her small town cowboy era at this time. Other than In a Jam, this was my second small town romance, which to many of my community members now, that's wild because I am a small town girl, cowboy girl now. So I read Done and Dusted, and that's a good, quick classic, you know? Brother's Best Friend, Reformed Playboy, that was probably my introduction really into, like, really loving Reformed Playboy. There's, of course, the whiskey scene. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So that was eye-opening. And, yeah, and then I was a small town girl. that was another BookTok find. I was living and breathing BookTok at this time. Like, I really, really was just a silent follower of the space, and it is so fun doing this episode, me like, oh my gosh, like, I am now doing what I was consuming, which is just, like, so fun to reflect on. Okay, next, on the Kindle, I remember exactly where I was. We were house sitting for my parents, and I read Consider Me by Becca Mack. Straight into it. Again, I think I was loving the reformed Playboy moment from Done and Dusted. And again, it was a BookTok darling at that time. And so I picked it up. I read it. I enjoyed it. And now I'm getting into the series. Now I'm understanding the found family beat. Now I'm getting the benefit of reading a series. However, for some reason, at that time, I skipped Play With Me and went straight into Unravel Me. I think that for some reason I was so intrigued by Adam, and then I had not read the like secret friends with benefits trope yet. Well, I guess Done and Dusted was, but for some reason I was just like far more interested in Adam at that time. So what did I do? I just read his book. I skipped Play With Me. I did come back to it eventually, but yeah, I don't know why I did that. And I think many people do that. I think Becca has said that. So if you skipped Play With Me, go back. It's a phenomenal book. Don't be like me. Do as I say, not as I do. And from the looks of it, I've since changed ratings, but that was, Unravel Me was like everything to me. I remember just absolutely adoring both characters. The son in that book, her son, I absolutely loved. I just ate up Unravel Me. It looks like I read it in 3 days, which at the time was the fastest I had read anything from the looks of it. And yeah, again, like I remember exactly where I was when I was reading that series, and it's just so wild. So let's see, how many books in are we? So that was like my 7th-ish book. Man, like it's so wild. I just remember like exactly where I was when I was reading these like early books. And now I read books so fast. Like oftentimes I read a book in one sitting, and I've really picked up the pace in terms of like how many pages or words I read a minute. And so at this time, like I remember those weeks by the book I was reading at the time, which is so fun. But next up, I went back and I read King of Pride by Anna Wong, which was super fun. I really loved the billionaire moment with that. So that was my 3rd Anna book then. And then I decided I was going to try my hand with Little Mafia Number. And to this day, I am still underappreciating the mafia romance genre, and I need to rectify this. I love a mafia romance. Like love a mafia romance. So this is my plea. Drop your favorites in the comments. Help me build my mafia TBR, because I have still to this day not thoroughly explored that subgenre enough. But I read The Sweetest Oblivion, which is book 1 in the Maid series. It's like a arranged marriage mafia boss. He was supposed to marry the sister, but ends up having to be with her type beat. And this was the summer. I was in the pool. I remember it was rare. I was there. I remember it all too well. Like, this was by far the most different out-of-the-box book I had read at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is a world of subgenres out here that I haven't even cracked the surface of. So I said, we shall be cracking surfaces now of new subgenres. So that was really, really fun. And then I am nearly certain I picked up this next one because of Torianne, and that's One Touch by Lena Hendricks. That's the 2nd book in the Sullivan series, and it's so crazy. I think that book had just released. Like, it was newish at that time. Am I making this up? At least it was blowing up on BookTok at this time? Let's see. Yeah, it released in June of 23, so it was new-ish. And this is book 2 in the Sullivans, as I said. And to see now that this has become a 9-book interconnected rival family saga of the Out of Towner series, and that I had just seen One Touch on BookTok, and now I work with Lena. Like, what a crazy, awesome, full circle moment. That this was one of the very first ones I read. So, wow, that's so fun. Shout out Torianne. Shout out Lena Hendricks. Hand hearts up to you ladies. And this is where we get into it. I think I'm going to wrap up with these this next little chunk right here. Because again, I'm imagining it as like the times that I read it. And then this was like a little era I went through right here. So I picked up then. I immediately went straight into One Touch, into Flawless by Elsie Silver. And we went back to back on those, honey. We went Flawless straight into Heartless. And I, as many, was just beautifully enamored with the one and only Willa Grant. Who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be? She was everything to me. And I cannot remember for the life of me. Well, yes, I can. Remember. Let's reverse back to a few minutes ago. I brought Powerless with me on my honeymoon. And it's sitting there, but I didn't read it. Like, I don't know what has happened here. Like, I really, really don't. Like, I don't know what happened with Powerless to make me put it off for so long. Maybe, like, I wasn't sure if I would like a road trip number. Like, I'm not sure. But, so I paused on Chestnut Springs because I apparently wasn't ready to read Powerless. It was a few years ago. I don't know. She was a different person at that time, okay? I wouldn't do that now, but that's what happened. Then, me, apparently at this time, I would never do this now, but I was reading out of order, and I read Twisted Lies by Anna Wong. Then I read The Favor by Suzanne Wright, and this was the one that I was mentioning and alluding to earlier. The Favor by Suzanne Wright is to this day the wildest book I've ever read. It is the most telenovela soap opera, awesome, wild, workplace, boss assistant, engagement of convenience, morally gray. It's single POV, so you don't really know how he feels about her. I've never read anything like The Favor. I need to go back and reread it again. To this day, there are so many subplots that could be their own main plots, but like in a fun, funky, fresh way. So if you're just looking for something wild, read The Favor. And then we go into one look back to the beginning from Lena. Fake Empire by C.W. Farnsworth, because I was into the billionaire number. Then we read the entire Falls Creek series, My Dark Romeo for another billionaire number, and then Reckless by Elsie Silver. And then rounding out my beginning of my reading journey in October of 23, I read Fourth Wing in the entirety of the Eden series, straight into Icebreaker in the fine print by Lauren Asher. Like, what crazy back to back was the beginning of my reading journey. But that was my truth. That was who I was, and that's what I was reading in the very, very beginning of my journey. So, I hope you have enjoyed this adventure down memory lane as much as I have. Like, that's just so fun to go back and uncover my early reading lore. Let me know if you want me to do a part 2, and I can kind of just go through the entirety of my backlist reading journey. I think that it's just so fun to reflect on what I read and why I read it and why I picked it up and all that good stuff. But with that being said, usually next week would be a reading recap episode, and it will not. It will not be a reading recap. I have a very, very special guest who will be joining me on the podcast. I can't tell you who it is quite yet, but be sure to keep an eye on my socials. If you're listening after this comes out, ignore me. But if you're listening on release day, I'll see you Monday for a very exciting announcement. And otherwise, I'll be back the next week for my February reading wrap-up. But I hope that you are doing absolutely amazing. And I hope that you have had a great start of the year so far. I love and adore each of you. And I've had so much fun diving into this with you. I think that's all I have. So I will see you next week for a very, very exciting episode. Thank you as always for spending your time with me. And I'll see you in the next one.